So this is one of the hardest programs I've ever had to review, but also one of the easiest. And that's because things were all over the place in terms of what it had. Some things made sense, some things not so much, and some things just made me go, what? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Glad that you're here and hope your workouts are going really well too. Of course, new review. I know, again, it's been a while. Trying to get better with this, I promise. Okay, but today we are reviewing Ryan Humston's push-pull legs program, and not honestly the biggest fan of it. It has some elements that are somewhat decent, but a whole lot of other stuff that kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, honestly. And I'll explain all this, but first thing that I'm gonna mention here, I think, this is at the point where we're gonna get all these, or I'm gonna get all these comments.
Incoming!
Yes, I know he's way more jacked than I am, okay, but I do in fact have the actual formal education, the actual background, the experience to review all these things. Yes, I lift regularly. No, it's not for maximum size or muscle hypertrophy or anything like that. I have different goals. Everybody has different goals in the fitness industry. I shouldn't be needing to mention these things. If you disagree with what I say, that's fine, all right? And you want to discuss it down below, go for it. I'd be happy to do that with you, okay? But if you came here to all say, do you even lift or something like that, then that's not helping much or contributing to the conversation much. But once again, unfortunately, that's the state of things that I have to mention something like this. Anyway, moving on to the review here, all right? And we can quickly actually get right into the program because while I do commend Ryan for charging only 20 bucks for this, all right? That's a very reasonable price for this, for what you get, honestly. But having said that, for that 20 bucks, you get the program, and that's really about it. You get a spreadsheet, a Google Sheets spreadsheet to record everything down, what you do, the weights, and the number of reps that you are able to actually achieve in this, and I'll cover this in a little bit. I think a lot of these reps you're not going to be able to actually fully achieve, but anyway, you get that spreadsheet, and then you get the program, and that's about it. There's no booklet, there's no really full on detailed explanations about the program itself. There's a little tiny intro where he explains that it's an awful program in the sense that it's brutal and really hard, and yeah, the way he designed it, it is, okay? But having said that, in the same intro, he mentions that this program is for advanced lifters, but can be modified a little bit to be for beginners. No beginner, no matter what kind of modification they make, even if they bring it down to just 3 days a week, this is a 6-day-a-week program, but even if they brought it down to a 3-day-a-week split, no beginner should be doing this program at all. Ryan should never have mentioned that. But anyway, in each day, he does include a video going over each exercise briefly, what you're going to do, the number of sets, the reps, the technique, whatever you're going to be doing for that particular exercise, and he demonstrates it as well briefly. It's the exact same style of video that he has on his YouTube channel. Exactly the same style. It's exactly what you expected, honestly, to be. So he does include all that, and he includes a written version as well, as if you don't want to watch the whole video. He could have been more detailed in the written part because he just briefly mentions what to do, but again, no explanation really. A couple pictures on doing the lift, right? So, but if you're just going off that written thing, it can be a little confusing on some things, exactly what you need to do. So you're better off watching the video because he does explain basically what you need to be doing for each exercise. But anyway, that's pretty much the only explanations you get for the program at all. There's no FAQ, there's no detail on what the program is about, why he designed it the way he did, why he put in the amount of volume they did. It's an enormous amount, right? I'll discuss this later. But that's really it. But like I said, it's only 20 bucks, so I wasn't necessarily expecting to get all those sort of things. But I think he should have included all those things. Charge a little bit more, included a whole lot more detail into the program itself. It would have benefited a lot of people. But anyway, getting into the program itself, now that we covered not much, let's go over again. We'll start off with day 1 and then go into day 2. That's the farthest I'm going to get, again, to be fair to Ryan. It's a push-pull leg split, obviously. Like I mentioned, it's 6 days a week, so you do 3 days on, then a day off, then the next 3 days, and then you cycle through that. All right, it's 4 weeks, and I'll mention here in a little bit actually the exercises and change after each week. Okay, so it's like 1 week is phase 1, then week 2 is phase 2. All right, there's some issues with this. I'll talk about this in just a little bit. But anyway, let's go over day 1. This is push 1. That's what he calls it. All right, so you're starting off with incline barbell. All right, perfectly good exercise. Nothing wrong with that. But what he has you doing is a 5-count rest pause. So you lower it down, all right, for 5 count on the first 3 sets. And he has it here as sets of 5, all right, 5 sets. And then you're doing reps of 15, followed by, on the first 3 sets. And then the 4th and 5th set, you're doing 30 reps after that. And those first 3 sets, what you're doing is with a rest pause, all right, and then a rest pause technique, and then also a lowering 5-count lowering part of it. So one thing I want to mention right here is every single exercise he has in this program includes some kind of special or higher advanced technique to it, whether it be a rest pause, a superset, a negative, drop set, all right, it's included in every single one. There's no reason for that, okay? There's nothing wrong with these type of techniques, by the way, okay? They're very effective, and they certainly have their place, okay? But they don't need to be on every single exercise, okay? It kind of gives the impression here that he put it in for the sake of brutality or for the sake of making it very, very highly intense when it's not necessary at all, even for advanced lifters, right? Another thing to mention here is that getting 15 reps in the first 3 sets, it's certainly possible, but you're not going to be putting up a ton of weight on this, which there's plenty of research showing that you can get plenty of hypertrophic response out of lighter weights, okay? But in terms of the brutality part of it, not so much, okay? And then to do 30 reps on the 4th and 5th set after you just did these first 3 sets, all right? You're not going to be having much weight on there at all, and it kind of questions, what's the purpose? Is that for just pump work, for the sake of just making it brutal? Again, like I said, it gives off that impression. Why? Okay, I don't see really the purpose of this at this point. And it just continues kind of this way. So the next one is, once again, a superset, where you're doing dips with a slow negative portion of it and then immediately into these barbell slide push-ups. Kind of an interesting technique, these barbell slide push-ups, right? And you're doing 4 sets to failure of both, okay? That makes a little bit more sense. If you're doing a body weight exercise, yes, they should be to failure or just shy of failure. Otherwise, you're not going to be getting a whole lot out of it. So I think that's perfectly fine. Again, I kind of question a little bit what's with the special techniques of doing this as a negative. Why not just straight dips? But again, if you're going to throw in a special technique, here isn't so much of an issue. I think it would be okay. It's just still going to be very difficult, which is what he's kind of going for here. After that, you're doing a cable fly with a negative and then a hold contraction, and then you're also supersetting with high and low together. And you're doing 4 sets of 20 reps each. Okay, so 20 down high to low, and then low to high. Again, what exactly is his reasoning for this enormous amount of volume? This is a very high amount of volume. We've already done a huge amount of volume to begin with, and you're pushing, you're just adding up to it. And he's continuing on with that whole special technique or high intensity techniques with it. Again, why not just simple high to low cable rows or level ones, all right, at which point you can just do straight sets of maybe around 12 to 15 at this point. You get plenty of stimulus out of it. So, but again, if for the sake of making it very brutal, okay, but again, what's the purpose here? Then you're going into side laterals with a 10-second raise followed by a 10-second lowering down. Yes, it increases your time under tension, but at the same time, again, I have to question, what's the purpose? What's exactly the reason? There's nothing wrong with a regular side lateral under nice control, getting full range of motion out of it. And again, doing this for 20 reps, that's an enormous amount of volume. Is it necessary at this point? No, because of all the pushing, the other ones you had just before this, the 3 exercises before this, you had plenty of stimulus out of the shoulder joint. So adding this enormous amount of volume, high volume out of it at this point again, isn't really necessary. So, let me go over briefly again here the other exercises, but there's one other thing I want to talk about. You're then doing dual cable front raise. Okay, so at this point, what's the reason for a front raise? I've mentioned this on the channel before. There's no reason to be doing a front raise for any program. As long as you have plenty of push in this program, in any program you do, which this does is an enormous amount of pushing because there's an enormous amount of volume out of it, your front delts are going to get plenty of stimulus out of this. There's no reason to include a front raise into the program. So why includes it here? To get, again, some extra volume out of the front delt, but at this point it's just turning into junk volume. At which point, again, it's not going to be serving much of a purpose. It's just adding volume for the sake of volume. Junk volume. All right? And then right after this, you're going to kneeling side laterals. You just before this, 2 exercises before, we're doing dumbbell side laterals while standing. Fairly similar. Again, what's the point of adding this? And if you at this point add into this exercise, you're asking somebody essentially to cheat the weight up. And for a lot of exercises before this. And then at that point, while there's a lot of debate around if cheating has any place in a program, you have some people on one side saying yes, some people saying no. It depends who you ask. Some saying in some instances yes, in some instances no. It depends where you use it. Okay, it's kind of all over the place. But at this particular instance here, you're going to be doing a lot of cheating. It's kind of forcing you, this type of program, to do a lot of cheat reps while you shouldn't be. Okay, because a lot of people are going to kind of second guess how much weight they're going to be trying to use. There's such an enormous amount of volume, high rep range, and a lot of things. At that point, again, you're not going to be that controlled, even for advanced lifters. All right, and then just adding on extra exercises that don't necessarily need to be there. And then this very last exercise, I'm not going to repeat the name for it, but on this particular case, it's a giant superset, essentially. You're doing 3 types of tricep exercise immediately into push-ups or diamond close stance or close grip, not grip, diamond push-ups, yeah. Diamond push-ups into this. I look at this and I wonder, are people actually going to be able to accomplish this? Because you're doing 4 sets of 20 reps each. And it's 3 regular tricep exercises followed by those push-ups, okay? So by the time you get to that 3rd exercise even, unless you get your weight correct, right, are you really going to be able to achieve this, even for advanced lifters? Followed by the fact that doing the push-ups at the very end, good luck trying to get any actual reps out of this. Maybe you can get 2 or 3, and in the video he even demonstrates, that's all he really gets. So at that point, what purpose does that serve to get only 2 or 3 reps out of the push-ups? Why not just break this up and do separate tricep exercises, maybe just 1 or 2 of them, do the straight sets. If you really want to go up to the 20 reps for each, again, that's way higher than it really needs to be. I think that would serve a much better purpose, okay? So that's the end of day 1. The volume is enormous. Okay, again, based on the research and experience in the fitness industry, okay, people only need really between 10 and 20 sets per muscle group per week. You're already getting way more than that based on this program, way higher than it needs to be. The rep ranges need to be, or should be, between 5 to 30 reps. This is here, but he consistently stays towards that higher rep range. It should follow all of that range at some point, depending on the exercise that you do, all right? So the volume is just way more than absolutely needs to be. And also, there's some exercises, like I said, in here that don't need to be necessarily in here, like the kneeling side lateral raises, or the extra tricep exercises. It's just kind of way too much. It's like I said, it's like he's putting in a ton of stuff just for the sake of brutality, just for the sake of volume, when it's not necessary at all. And this makes your stimulus to fatigue ratio very, very high. Your stimulus is going to be very high, sure, which is what you're trying to go for, but your fatigue is also going to be enormously high as well, especially towards the end. And to add in that giant superset of the tricep exercise at the end of it, okay, it's just too much, okay? So at this point here, your stimulus to fatigue ratio, you're not getting that great return on reward in terms of a stimulus, okay? It's just not really necessarily going to work. And it's going to make it much harder for you to recover. Again, remember, you're going 3 days in a row. You are getting a day off after that and then doing the next 3 days. But are you really going to be able to necessarily recover in time between each workout? I'm not so sure, honestly. Okay? Because, again, the stimulus to fatigue ratio is just so high based on his design. All right? If you go into the next day, into the pull day, all right, it's the same sort of thing. Every single exercise has some kind of special or high intensity technique to it, whether it be drops or supersets or whatever it is. And again, also the volume is enormously high. So you're again going to be almost forcing people to cheat in some of the reps. Also to mention here that some of the technique he shows on some of the exercises, some are good, some could be honestly a little bit better. Nothing's horrible or anything like that. And I do commend him. It's like in this, on the second day here in the barbell row, his technique I think is great on this. And I think that the exercise over, I'm honestly not a huge fan of the barbell bent over row. I think it greatly depends on exactly the technique that you use for it, but it can lead to some back issues for some people. But again, everybody's different. And if you want to do this, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, as long as you do keep your technique nice and controlled and in check, and you don't try to load the barbell up with a huge amount. But having said this, in this particular exercise, again, he's using a drop set here. You're doing 10 reps, drop, then 10 reps, then drop, and then 10 with a slow lowering phase to it, okay? So it's just way more than absolutely needs to be. The standing hypers, that's a perfectly good exercise, and at this point, because his body weight, up to 20 reps for something like this is appropriate. And then after that, you know, you rear delt machine fly 3 ways, okay? It's essentially kind of like 21s, but it's, well, it's actually in this case, it's more like 60s because you're doing 20 reps each. And so you're doing this here, starting this portion of it, then you're doing the full range of motion, then the first beginning portion of it. Why in that particular order? Why not just do the full range of motion, then the beginning part, and then the last end, or the other way around? Okay, why add in the full range at the beginning? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense in this particular case. And then after that, you're doing barbell shrugs with the 2-second hold at the top, but he's having you do 3 sets of 50 reps. Okay, huge amount of volume, all right? Why that high rep count? Again, it's not necessary. You're already getting a ton of stimulus in your traps from a lot of the other movements that you're doing. Why that huge amount? And to ask people to do a 2-second hold for each one? I don't see that happening, honestly. Unless you have just a very low amount of weight on the bar, okay? Is it achievable? Sure, but is it necessary? No, not at all. And then after that, this elbow tuck, ascending, descending curls. This one really honestly didn't make a whole lot of sense, okay? Because you're doing 3 sets, but you're doing 15 reps on the ascending part. So you're starting with a weight, do 15 reps, and then go up in weight to get 15 reps until you are no longer able to get 15 reps. Then you drop down again and keep going down. This doesn't, you're not going to get very high in the weight that you're going to go up to. So again, what purpose does this serve? Why not just do a straight set of 15 reps followed by just a traditional drop set? That makes a whole lot more sense. You can control the movement a lot better. You're a lot less likely to cheat by the time you get to the end of it, or at this point, in this particular case, you're going to end up cheating around the middle, all right? But it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the cable rope drop set, curls here. This one, again, such a huge amount of volume, 30 reps, 4 sets of it, each set having 3 drops in each set, okay? Why? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then he has some abs, which are perfectly fine there. But so this, guys, it gives you an idea here, okay? And it sounds like I'm trying to bash him in some ways. I'm not at all, okay? I'm not at all. I'm just trying to understand exactly why he designed it this way. It just, a whole lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The enormous amounts of volumes, the use of special techniques on every single exercise, just forcing people to do cheat reps on a lot of instances. And another thing to mention here is there's no indication of what weight you're supposed to use for this, okay? He doesn't provide any indication. No use of RPE, RIR, percentage of 1RM, nothing. You're left guessing on what weight you need to use for this, so you're going to be experimenting a lot on this, which isn't such a good thing. People should have some idea of what weight to shoot for in this particular case. But again, because of all the special techniques, it's going to be hard to actually determine what weight that should be. Another thing here that I want to mention is each week, like I mentioned in the beginning, changes in the exercises, okay? A couple exercises here or there are the same, but the overall structure essentially stays the same, but the exercises themselves that you're using changes. Why change it after each week? Okay, you're not allowing people to actually adapt or allow to use adherence at all. There's no place for progressive overload, which is what you need, okay? Again, he's just making this as brutal as possible for the sake of brutality and high intensity without kind of putting much logic into it. I'm giving this one, honestly, a score of 4 out of 10, okay? It has decent exercise selection. There's nothing wrong there. He does demonstrate everything for you, all right? The exercise order overall, for the most part, is okay. There's some things that are questionable there as well, like on one of the leg days, there's some stuff that doesn't make any, honestly doesn't make any sense. There's one push day in another week where he ends up putting a whole bunch of exercise in at the very end, then he does close grip bench press at the very end. That doesn't, again, that's after you're doing a tricep push down or extension, okay, so again, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, honestly. But for the most part, the structure overall is okay. It's just the enormous amounts of volume, way more than it needs to be. The use of special technique on everything, which is not necessary at all, is going to force people to cheat on a lot of things. It's going to make your stimulus to fatigue ratio way too high than it needs to be. It's going to increase the risk of injury for doing this, okay? It just laid out the way it is, that it just honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that is my thoughts on this program, okay? It's just way too much, honestly. It's just way too much. Again, like I said, if you want to give this a try, just understand this, okay? But I personally would not honestly recommend it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope that you found it helpful. Okay, again, like I say, I'm not trying to be bashing on Ryan himself, not trying to be any hate towards him at all, okay? He seems like, if you talked with him and everything, he would be a good guy, but this program that he laid out just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anyway, guys, that is my review for today. Plenty more coming up, and I will see you guys next week.